All right.
Hey,
Black Widow, thank you for waiting patiently. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm well. What do you have to say about that?
I actually had a question. Well, I had two. Well, obviously, I'm here for that. I had a couple questions because originally I was wondering what you meant about the caliber of women that what they deserve and what they want and what they should get. But now I actually kind of have a question of you saying that women are getting bored and that's why they're leaving the relationships that they're in because from my understanding, it is the respect. It can definitely be abuse. It's not because you have the availability of all these people. There's a lot of avenues now. There's a lot of options. I will say that. And that goes on both sides. We have all these apps, we have all these connections. People think they have a lot more options than they really truly do. But quality and quantity are not the same thing. So I'm a little curious to what you mean as they have people in their DMs and women are getting bored and that's why they're getting out of their marriages.
Yeah. So, as far as saying that women are getting bored and that's why they're ending their marriages and getting out of relationships, there's no like any extra context to that. But the same
But
way,
how can you make that make sense for me?
yeah,
Because
I'll try.
So
if
yesterday,
men aren't bringing the same thing to the table as far as like we're both working, right? But if I'm in the house and you expect me to clean, you expect me to take care of the kids, you expect me to do everything else, then sometimes it's not equal. And some men do put in the equal effort, and I promise you those men are not being divorced. But then other men too, the same ones that expect you to do the extra work, are also stepping out. So how
Okay.
does
So,
that part work?
okay,
The men
great,
who
great.
are doing everything are getting stepped out on and they are getting divorced by women. He's absolutely right. Women do get bored. They do leave men for
But
asinine
More
reasons.
often than
okay,
being
Black Widow.
disrespected and being not, being fidelity.
Black Widow. So again, I didn't grow up. I didn't grow up in a household. I don't know about yourself. I didn't grow up in a household where my parents didn't work in tandem. So when I hear you and other black women talk about try to make it seem as if, and again, I didn't grow up in this household, so I'm sure it exists, but I just didn't grow up in it, and I never seen it before. So when y'all talk about these men that they literally all they did was go to work and then they came home and ate and didn't do anything else and watched TV, and the woman did everything else pertaining to the kids in the household. I can't personally relate to that. But to the women that are in those relationships, that is their fault. They need to take accountability for being in relationships with men. And this is my thing. If it's so bad, why are these women in relationships with these men? Why are they staying in these relationships for years upon end? So again, at the end of the day, forget at the end of the day, that is their fault. That's not all
I will
men.
agree to the accountability of that. That yes, you chose that man, you married that man, and then you actually and part of the mindset is that I am with this man. This is what I agreed to. This is what I wanted. This is the path that I chose to take, and I'm going to do everything I can to make it work while I'm in it. And they do it
Black
for years, and they will do it for years, and they will make that mistake for years, and then eventually they'll stop. And that does not take away the fact that yes, they chose that when they chose it, but then eventually they get to the point where they do leave it as well. So I mean, I've seen
Black
it more
Widow,
often than not be because they're bored, but being because you know what, I've tried for a while, it's not working, and I'm going to go ahead and go from my
Black Widow.
experience.
So when a person like enters the commitment of being married, like that's a commitment, a lifelong commitment,
Hmm.
essentially. So when you have women, like yesterday, I was on a live and a woman talked about um, she divorcing or her friend divorcing because she outgrew her husband, right? Obviously, she wouldn't provide more details because she was going to be called to be accountable. So that conversation didn't go long. But what does it mean to outgrow? And I've on multiple platforms have women complained about husbands who either I don't know if they I mean essentially it boils down to that they're bored with them because what does it mean to outgrow somebody, right? If they're not abusing you, if they're not hurting you, if they're not cheating on you, if you outgrow them, what's that? So that's one example
Oh, do
that
you
we
want
had
explanation
yesterday in the
about
live.
growing them?
Well, I want to first I want to just first present that one example, and then the next example I want to present is the Tia and Tamara, like one of the twins divorcing because she's not happy, right? So those are two examples, because I know you said you don't hear about it much. Do I have that correct about women leaving because they're bored, or for
Not leaving because that they're bored. And I'm definitely here to get some insight on it.
Okay, so even if they don't come out directly and say, I'm bored, I'm leaving, right? And I don't think anybody would. I don't think that, that's even a quantifiable number, because who's going to take a poll and say I left because I was bored? But reasons such as I've outgrown him or I'm not happy, I would say are not valid reasons to leave your commitment. That means you weren't ever fully committed. And it does happen. And I don't want us to minimize the amount of times that women, whether they cheat on their husbands, whether they break up their families, that it doesn't necessarily have to be from poor doing from the men, that they can just be not feeling engaged, right? And leave their marriage.
Did you say not being happy is not a reason to leave a
I don't think
committed
not being
relationship?
happy. Yeah, I don't think that's a reason to leave a marriage.
So you should remain unhappy to keep the marriage together.
Well, I believe that, we're responsible for our happiness. And I believe that some people are just going to, like, they deal with. So let me just say this. I don't believe that our emotions should be the driving force for the decisions that we make, right? We use our emotions to navigate through life. So emotions, there are ebbs and flows of them. So you can be not happy this year and very happy next year, right? And I think also, if we really take into consideration the entire spectrum of happiness, we will understand that our happiness is our responsibility. The love that we feel, even when we're with somebody, you know how you look into your man's eyes, and you're like, I love you so much. That's not love that he's necessarily giving you. That's love that's coming from within you. That's an emotion that's within you that you are extending to that person. It's the same thing with happiness. It comes from within. So, though there are many factors to consider as to why a person's not happy, again, if it is outside of physical abuse, mental abuse, where you're being torn down, verbally abused, right? If it's just because you're not happy, and you have a good man, you have a reliable man, and you have a faithful man, that is not a reason to leave a marriage. You probably, if you are not in control of your emotions, and a lot of people, before they even go to these situations, they know that they deal with depression and all of these things, right? We're not introspective enough. But if you're expecting somebody else to be the sole basis of your happiness, don't get married. But yeah, being happy is not a reason to leave a marriage.
And it's crazy that you say that, and I would 100% agree. And I'm gonna say this real quick, because just what is it, 2023? Just about 3 years ago, just if you making decisions based off of just the emotion that you feel within a second, when in reality it can change over time. I would have been stuck with Lord knows how many kids. Because I promise you, I like 3 years ago, I felt like the only thing that could make me happy in that moment was just popping out babies. And I feel like when I seen everybody else having kids, I'm like, well, let me go have some kids. Let me have, you know what I'm saying, a whole bunch. But when I tell you, listen, I put that to the side, and now today's day, I'm glad I ain't had none, because these kids cost more than the arm and the leg. So yeah, when you feel a quick emotion in a quick second, you don't just react off of that. Give it some time to really like set in or whatever. So if you know that you can't control your emotion within that moment, or you feel like it's just the flow at that time, I don't feel like it's good to make that much of a rational decision to be like, let's divorce just because I'm not feeling my best emotionally right now. Because I mean, the human brain and the mind is just so crazy. Like you can just go through so many waves of emotions so quickly that it don't even make no sense.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing before you respond, Black Widow. Listen, to all the men in here, listen, and I'm not talking about Black Widow, but any woman that's just like just emotionally unstable. And I was talking to a girl about this the other day, like, Black women love to talk about how all these black men lack emotional intelligence and this, that, and the third. We need to start talking about all the emotional intelligence and all the emotional instability that black women have. Listen, any woman that's talking about being unhappy, because when she's not in a relationship, right, when she's single, her happiness is all on her. It's on her to make herself happy, right? But when she gets in a relationship, there's these women that they try to make it seem like now, just because they're in a relationship with you, it's all on you to make them happy, and you need to make them happy You need to have them happy 100% of the time, because that's how life works, right? These women are not gonna try to, like, um when the going gets tough, they're not gonna try to get. They're gonna, when they said that when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. They're gonna get going, like they're gonna want to leave. Again, they're not gonna want to exhaust options. They're not gonna want to sit down and say, "Hey, babe, I love you and I want our relationship to continue, but I'm unsatisfied in these areas of our relationship right now. Like, we need to work on doing these things so we can improve, so we can stay together." Now, this is my thing, then I'm gonna let you respond. If a conversation is had and there is not changed behavior, I can understand, and there's not changed behavior over a constant period of time, I can understand you feeling like that person is disregarding you or they don't really care. But to just say, "Oh, I'm unhappy," do you, as a woman, do you ever think about how unhappy, like, you women make men in relationships? Do you ever think about how unhappy you women make men in marriages? Do you ever think about how men have to get up and go to work and be providers for their family and their household, and still make you happy, and still be your husband, and still be a dad? Do men
The,
complain nearly as much about doing any of those things? If I got off of here and made a video and said, "I'm tired of being a dad, I'm tired of being a husband, I'm tired of having to get up and go to work, and my wife's not making me happy, keeping me happy 100% of the time," do you think there's going to be a bunch of women supporting me, or are there going to be a bunch of women bashing me? What do you honestly think?
mm.
They're gonna be bashing you and telling you to man up.
My point.
I just want to say
So
this
hold
real
on. Did
quick.
you say that
I'm
if,
tired
like,
of being an
you
adult.
go to work, you're being a provider, you come home, you're being a spouse, you're being a parent, and they're tired, and your responsibility is to make the other person happy, that's a problem. That's where the problem lies.
What did you say?
So you said, if, like, are men happy going to work, coming home, and taking care of the kids, and then they're also supposed to be expected to make their wife happy, and that's just, kind of
Man,
an unrealistic expectation for them to provide and then come home to do that, because you're not responsible for anybody else's happiness. I think that was a really good point that you guys brought up. You're responsible for your own happiness. Now, granted, in a relationship, because I love that person, I will try to make them happy how I can in any way that I can. Okay, so I'm deflecting now, asking questions. So that's what I was wondering. I'm sorry.
man, my point is that men suffer in silence a lot. The men have to keep their head up and remain strong and not show any weakness. Because despite the fact that you guys, nowadays you guys was first, it was like, first back in the day it was okay, if this man's showing emotion, you know words that I can't say on this live, y'all would call these men these names. But now if they don't show emotion, or as enough emotion, or as much emotion as you want them to show, then you call that toxic masculinity. But at the end of the day, you women don't want emotional men. You don't want men that you see as feminine. You don't want men that when the going gets tough and you're crying, you don't want a man that's gonna be crying in your chest or crying on your shoulder with you. You want a man that's gonna have his head held up high and tell you that everything is gonna be okay. My point is that you women talk about being unhappy. You guys are, there's a lot of men that are in relationships with women that are very annoying, women that are very nagging, women that are not bringing them any happiness or joy. But because of the love that they have for the woman, because of they want to stick to their vows and make things work, they're trying their best to make things work. So I don't think a lot of you women, really think about it from that point a lot of the times. So happiness is not, being unhappy is not a legitimate reason to just want to end a relationship, or end a marriage, because you're not ever going to be 100% happy in life. The same
No,
way, if you get into
I
another
agree with that.
relationship, that man is not going to keep you happy 100% of the time. So
No,
you're just going to be
I
a
agree with
professional
that. I
dater.
do not expect a man to try to keep me happy. To be completely honest, I work for contentment, because you can be happy, but you can also be sad. So if you work on balancing your life, that's a little bit different. So it's not, oh, well, the man's supposed to make you happy. No, he should, make you happy, and you should make him happy. You guys should be happy to be together, but everything's not rainbows all the time. That is not how life works. It's not going to be all rise, no falls. There's going to be falls.
Go ahead,
This
Mo.
makes me think about way before, like you guys remember like years ago, Will Smith and Jada, and this is way pre-slap, right? Where they came online and they made a video about kind of like separating and you go find your own happiness, and they were having that discussion. And that's what it made me think about, because if you remember, like, her, I think it was her 40th birthday, and he went and had this whole grandiose like celebration, and he really went all out, and he said it was because she was depressed. He noticed that she was depressed. Like, he really did everything he thought that would make her happy, and had a party, had Mary J. Blige out, celebrity star, whatever, and she like threw it in his face and said it was because of his ego. And then after that is when you saw them making the videos about, listen, you go find your happiness. And I honestly feel like what we didn't have insight into is that, like, this is an example of a man trying to make his wife happy, and it didn't matter what he did, she
Right.
wasn't going to be happy, she wasn't going to be receptive of it, because she was miserable, and she still is miserable if you ask me. But she was miserable, and she needed to find her own happiness. And I do think that it's irresponsible to place that solely on somebody else, because honestly, even if you have a man that's trying to do, like, he can't go inside of you and rewire you, so he tried to bring external things, right? And then that still wasn't enough. So yeah, we have to be very introspective of ourselves and seeing where we are, and manage our own emotions. That's all I have to say about that. But that's what that reminded me of.
Uh,
Like, sometimes it's nothing that your husband can do to make you happy if you're a miserable person.
No,
Black.
that's true. And I also think that, like, personally, is it's really, really hard. Like, oh, you need to be his peace. Like, everyone needs to be each other's peace, because the world is hard enough, but it's really hard to be someone's peace when you're their personal hell. And somehow people don't realize that. Like, well, be his peace though, but he's my hell. So how do you want me to do that? You want me to make that work? Like, that's where I see the unhappiness. Like, that's where I see it being, if you're putting me through all this and I get to the point where I put in the work, I went through the trenches, but I can't do this anymore, the fight's over, I'm gonna leave. That's where I see
Can we get a
leaving for
little
being
more
unhappy.
specific? Can we get a little more specific when you say, like, putting you through this? Because, we've already established, outside of being physically abusive, verbally abusive, you know what I mean, and like mentally abusive.
But then
What would be
doesn't
the this?
physical, so there's physically abusive is very obvious. Verbally abusive becomes broader. Emotionally and psychologically abusive also becomes broader. So if they're playing those games with you, like, okay, I want my wife to be skinny, right? And she doesn't go to the gym, but I don't give her any time to go to the gym because I want her to spend the time with me. Like, why isn't she spending the time with me? If she doesn't spend the time with me, I'm really upset because she's not giving me the time I want. But I need her to go to the gym so she can be skinny. Like, how would you characterize that? What would you categorize that as,
That doesn't
personally?
make any sense.
It doesn't, but that's the thing some
It makes
people
it
deal with.
impractical, but it doesn't make it abusive. So if he's not like saying yo fat ass every time, you know what I mean? Like,
But if what if
if
he
he's
is
not
though?
demeaning
But
her,
what if he is? What if he's like, hey, we need
that's
to
why I'm
talk
asking,
about
like, give
Okay,
we
specifics.
need
Black
to
Then
Widow.
that's
we
verbal.
need to talk about your weight. You are not the weight that I want you to be at. And you
Black
know,
Widow. Black Widow. Can you and I both agree that what you said, that hypothetical situation, that any man that would do something like that doesn't make any sense? Can we agree to that?
you said hypothetical?
If being the example that you just provided about a
Yes.
Is
man
that a real
saying
life
he
example?
wants a woman to
Yes, it
lose
is.
weight and get in shape, but then he's also not encouraging her to go to the gym and spend time with him, can we agree that that makes no sense at all?
I didn't say not encouraging her to go to the gym. It's monopolizing her time. He wants the time with her and he needs the time with her. And when he doesn't get it, it becomes a problem for him. But he also wants her to be skinny, but he monopolizes her time. That's what I'm saying. And no, I don't think it makes sense. We can agree that it doesn't make sense.
Okay, so
But
do
I'm
you
not
think
I'm not saying it doesn't happen though. It happens.
okay, do you think out of 10 men, if they really want that woman to lose weight, are they going out of 10 men, do you think they're going to prioritize and appreciate her spending a lot more time at the gym, or in that time frame when they want her to lose weight, do you think they're going to appreciate it more with her spending more time at the gym and on her diet?
Also, since we're talking about people who are married and this is a conflict that comes up in a marriage, there should
Yeah.
be healthy dialogue and communication so that she can say, hey, babe, this is your expectation of me. I want to meet this expectation. I have to allocate this amount of time. So these are the days of the week that I'm going to go to the gym, and I'm going to allocate an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours for time to commute there, get their workout, this amount of time, and then come back home. Now, if after that point he's still unreasonable and giving her problems, because in order to make this scenario, I'm trying to provide validity to this scenario, we need a little more details, right? Because it's not enough to just be like, he gets mad when she's not there. Okay, then the next step would be to try to cooperate together, come up with a plan, and execute from there. Now, if he's still giving resistance and issues at that point, then the problem is a little bit more than just he wanted her to lose weight and he's obsessed with spending time with her. It's a little bit deeper because
Yeah,
you
and
can't have both.
I feel like too, based off of this hypothetical, like unless we're talking about her being, on My Biggest Loser and her being 500 pounds, like let's just say if she's just, a bit overweight, like, just 50, 60, 70 pounds to his dislike. If he wants her to essentially lose weight, but he also wants to spend time with her, I always tell people, don't ask nothing from anybody that you're not willing to give in return. So if he
Mhm.
wants to, mix both of them together, go to the gym with her. Even if you're not gonna work out, just be there with her and coach her or cheer her on and stuff like that. But you can't expect something from somebody and say, I want you to go to the gym, but then I want to hang out with you at the same time. And I want you to somehow magically within 24 hours make both of them possible. Like you need to go to the gym with her so y'all can spend time together and she could work towards what you're requesting from her. But I just feel like within that hypothetical, like Mocha kind of said, like it just needs to be more validity or like more specific so we can give a exact answer as to where this scenario should go.
I mean, I agree with you though. I agree with that. I think that makes sense. Like if you're gonna ask something of somebody, you should be providing something to it. Like, hey, you know, I want you to do this. So you should eat healthier. Cool. I agree. We can eat healthier. No, 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 but I don't want to make the food. I don't want to have to cook for us to eat healthier. You just need to figure it out. Okay, so where's the support in that? And my question was asking, like, you said, different levels of abuse, and that was just something I was providing where it causes that like cognitive dissonance of, hey, I want you to work out and be skinny, but I'm not gonna give you the time psychologically to go to the gym because I want to spend that time with you.
Yeah, that's just super
Yeah.
unreasonable. And me personally, I don't think most men are that unreasonable.